Everyone, my name is Lucy. I'm a student employee at the Brown Family Environmental Center in Gambier, Ohio, but due to the coronavirus pandemic, I am living in a small town in Massachusetts. As fall comes to a close, I'm trying to get outside as much as I can before the cold really sets in, and as I venture outdoors, I'm reminded that nature in winter is far more exciting than what usually appears at first glance. So today, I hope I can convince you guys of just that. So yeah, let's go.
As winter approaches, the natural world slows down. The cold air and long dark nights signal plants to prepare for the long season ahead, as the coming months will undoubtedly challenge the toughest plant survival skills. The declining sunlight prevents plants from photosynthesizing and creating the food and energy they need to survive, while the cold temperatures can freeze surrounding water, preventing uptake and dehydrating the plant. As a result, the vibrant, warm colors of the fall slowly fade into a dull, monochrome winter landscape. In response to the harsh changes, most plants shut down once cold weather strikes, and many trees shed their leaves, while other plants slowly brown and decay into the ground, where other roots and seeds and bulbs wait out the cold season until warm weather returns and they can comfortably germinate and bloom again. But winter is not only a time of decay and waiting. In fact, the season also invites new growth and emphasizes the resilience of some incredibly impressive plants that manage to survive the long season. Without the colorful distractions of showy summer, spring, and fall plants, the winter prompts us to focus on some of the most fascinating and understated plants. And while there are many to choose from, today we are going to explore one of my personal favorites, evergreen trees, the true shining stars of winter. First, what is an evergreen tree? Evergreen is a classification of tree that encompasses all trees that retain their leaves and remain green year-round. This is in contrast to deciduous trees, which lose their leaves once the cold strikes. Unlike deciduous trees, evergreens have adapted this unique ability to survive throughout the winter by developing mechanisms and specific structural and compositional adaptations in the plant's anatomy that allow them to overcome usual winter challenges, which is a very impressive accomplishment. It's also important to note that evergreen is a broad classification, and there are many different categories within this classification. The most well-known type of evergreen are coniferous trees, which are defined by having needles and growing cones. These are what I'm going to focus on today, though there are many other kinds of evergreens that do not produce cones or needles, like holly and some oak trees. But back to conifers. There are so many different kinds of conifers, from cedar, pine, fir, spruce, cypress, juniper, redwood, hemlock, and yew. Each have their own unique characteristics. But what they all have in common, as I said before, is their production of cones, needle-like leaves, and their ability to survive through the winter. So, how do they do it? To understand how conifer trees are able to do this, let's first look at how water moves through a tree. Basically, the water that the roots suck up eventually moves up through the trunk and exits through the tree's leaves via evaporation and transpiration. The more surface area the leaf has, the more water is able to escape because there are more pores or paths to escape in the leaf. Unlike trees that have these broad leaves, like deciduous trees, conifer trees have tiny, thin needles. This is the primary adaptation that allows conifer trees to survive. Because they have such small needles, less water is emitted, because there's less surface area for water to be able to escape through the pores. Moreover, the pine needles have a thick waxy coating called cutin that helps prevent further water loss and protects the leaves from harsh drying winds. This reserved water allows the tree to continue photosynthesizing, that is, make food and energy in really cold and dry weather. To better understand these adaptations, I ventured out into the cold in pursuit of some evergreen trees. I explored some trails by the beach in a small Cape Cod town and a nearby community botanical garden, so not all of the trees I show here are native to the area. I came across many different conifer trees on my walk. Though they look similar, they each have highly distinct characteristics, and you can differentiate between them from the formation and texture of their pine needles, their bark, and the fruit that they produce. So let's take a closer look. The first conifer I walked by is this pitch pine tree, which is native to North America and is fairly common in the Northeast and Midwest. You can tell this is a pine by how the needles stem from a single point. They are relatively long, usually about 6 inches, and very stiff. It has a reddish-brown bark and usually grows about 35 feet, which is relatively small to average for a pine tree. The tree begins to produce woody pine cones after about 3 years of maturity, which encase seeds and protect them from harsh winter winds. The density of the pine needles provides great cover and nesting sites for birds, especially in the winter when most other trees are bare. The seeds in the cones also attract birds like robins, finches, nuthatches, waxwings, and chickadees. The next conifer that caught my eye on my walk is this eastern red cedar tree. This is one of the most common evergreen trees in the eastern part of North America.
Contrary to its common name,
this tree is not in fact a cedar tree, but rather a juniper tree. True cedars are not native to the US, while this tree is. Also, unlike cedars, which produce woody cones, juniper trees produce small, fleshy, blue, berry-like cones, as you can see here, which add a really pretty pop of color against the dark green leaves. These cones grow in the fall, but remain throughout the winter and are beloved by birds and other critters who spread the tree's seeds, causing the tree to spread prolifically.
You can also identify this tree by the formation and feel of the needles. They are small and composed of tiny scales that encase each other and then fan out. They are often sticky and flexible and emit a light fragrance when pressed. The tree also has very notable bark. It is brownish gray and forms long, thin strips that peel very easily.
This is a Monterey Pine tree, which is native to California. It is characterized by upward pointing branches that have clusters of long, thin needles that grow in bunches of 3 and create this conical funnel-like shape. Small egg-shaped pine cones grow along the branches and contain 150 to 200 small seeds, which are released when the pine cone matures and opens in late winter.
This next conifer tree I came across is this beautiful Japanese cedar tree, which is the national tree of Japan, but also grows throughout the United States. Like the red cedar tree, Japanese cedar is not a true cedar, but in fact a cypress tree, which is distinguished by the tree's hard, short, pointed 1 to 2 inch long needles that are arranged in an overlapping spiral formation and emit a very pleasant citrusy smell when crushed. Also, this tree has distinct strips of reddish-brown bark. This is definitely the biggest tree I came across. It can grow between 50 to 70 feet tall. And as you can see, the pine cones are starting to bud and they will continue to grow throughout the winter, housing little seeds inside. I could go on forever about evergreen trees, but I'm going to leave you guys with that. Nothing suits a winter landscape more than a frosty conifer tree with its warm citrusy smell. So even in the heart of winter, I hope you can look to these trees for some comfort. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!